So let's begin with a very familiar story. You're dating a guy who you really like in the beginning. They're amazing. They're telling you how amazing you are. They may even say things like, "Oh, I'm sorry if I'm coming on too strong. I'm worried about this being too quick. I'm worried that I might be coming across as being needy." And everything feels amazing. You think they're self-aware, that they actually have great communication skills. They're really into you and they really want you. And then something happens. They pull back. They don't communicate as much, and you worry that you may have done something to cause them to feel like you're being needy. And you reach out and try and find out what you might have done wrong, and they assure you that it's nothing to do with you and that everything's fine, but nothing really still feels quite the same way it did back when you were dating them in the beginning. And so you continue on in hopes that things will suddenly return to those golden days and that they're simply just busy, going through difficult times and stress. And then shortly after, they break up with you abruptly. Or they might do this in the middle of a relationship when you decide to move in together, or some other similar event. And whilst you're usually heartbroken off the back of these experiences, you're often filled with self-doubt and also feel like you're the one who was too needy. You were pressuring them too much. You were being too difficult. Fills you up with a lot of shame, maybe even suicidal ideation, like that's common, and also fills you to the point of despair and thinking that you're not lovable and that you've done something wrong. You start dating again, trying to feel better about yourself and also trying to prove that you are lovable, whilst also still feeling terrible because you might even feel like you're actually betraying your ex because you also love them. And I don't care whether or not you were dating them for like 2 weeks or 2 months or even 2 years. The fact of the matter is that you can't put your head around the fact that this has ended and that it feels terrible and you're a shell of who you formerly were. Your self-esteem is shot, you feel terrible about yourself, you think you'll never find a partner quite like them again. And you're finding it really hard to move on because off the back of that experience, it's really made you feel like an absolute terrible person. And you're left wondering, how did this happen and how can I avoid it again? So what I just described there were the symptoms of when you've gone through an experience like this. You are basically experiencing what it's like to date someone who is emotionally unavailable and has massive patterns of avoidant behavior. So before I talk about attachment style and avoidant patterns of behavior for a hot minute, I want to talk about what you're going through. When you've been with someone like this, the real problem is that there's cognitive dissonance. You've kind of been love bombed in the beginning, and everything they said, I would truly believe they meant. The problem for these individuals is they get so caught up in the idea and the chemistry of what's going on, but because they can't connect with their own emotions, they often feel scared, bored, disinterested, and also feel like they're not good enough themselves, but they back away out of shame and aren't able to communicate this to you, and you think you're the problem when in fact it's them. For most of you who've gone through an experience like this, it's what actually drives you to therapy. You often come to me, coaching, counseling, therapy, psychotherapy, psychologists, psychiatrists, because you've just come off the back of a terrible experience with one of these individuals who's done this. Out of compassion to talk about people who are avoidantly traded, it's important to understand that though they have a history for why they are who they are, and it is something where we can have empathy for them, it does not mean that we can excuse their behavior. And often these are the individuals that really should be coming into therapy, but often don't believe that they need to come into therapy. So you're left with the burden of doing all the work. And it's important to also understand too, that for people who are avoidantly traded, they didn't come this way because they were malicious or because they intended to, confuse you. They were just as confused by being in this experience. And it's often what leads them to therapy down the road because they see that they're burning out in all their relationships. So to put this under the lens of attachment theory, this was a theory that was created by Bowlby way back when, and without getting too bogged down in the semantics, just to help you understand, you have your secure, anxious, and avoidant attachment styles. These are the ways we look to understand how people relate to other people. When someone is typically secure, they're able to express themselves more confidently and express how they're feeling. When they feel like they're getting pulled away by their partner, they'll express that doesn't feel all right. They also mention when they're getting smothered in order to repair their relationships. So they're pretty good. The people who are more anxious typically find that they want to, get close when their partner pulls away and they think they're responsible for that. They also crave that reassurance because often they've been lacking reassurance from their family dynamics. They often encountered abandonment when they were younger. And for the people who are avoidantly traded, they want closeness and affection, but when they get to a certain point, they hit their threshold and back away because it's too much and they fill up with a lot of fear, doubt, confusion. You could typically be a secure individual who's dating someone who's more avoidantly traded, or even someone who may have originally been more anxious or avoidant, but this encounter is traumatic. So it leaves a really bad mark on you, which can lead you more into the anxious side of the spectrum if you've never gone through this before. But the more that you heal from these experiences, the more it helps you to become more secure. I wanted to stop here to say that attachment styles aren't meant as a diagnosis. It's more of a way of looking at patterns of behavior. And when you start to feel those early trigger warnings of butterflies in your body, you know, that sense of like chemical rush and excitement of when you've met someone over a couple of dates and you're like, oh my God, I really love this person. That's your cue to step in and be like, oh, okay, my body's reacting to this. What does this mean? That's a really powerful way of realizing this is actually maybe feeling a little bit too familiar. And it helps you to discern what needs to happen next, which is to communicate, I don't feel comfortable with this. I need to step away just to create some space or to just slow things down. Your discernment. The point is, these encounters are really not healthy for you. Have enough of these and you'll think that all men or women are just out there to be terrible, that they're just players, that they don't have commitment, and that they're not capable of love and you're going to die alone. Believe me, this is a massive epidemic of emotional unavailability that we're experiencing too. I think a lot of this behavior can also be thrown around with narcissism because it definitely can intertwine with that too. There's a lot of overlap there. You definitely see the love bombing, devalue, and discard going on there too. So if you want to apply that theory, by all means, do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that these folks are narcissists. And before I talk about them and also what it means to be this kind of person and what they're going through, the thing I just want to let you know is that recovery and also learning how to navigate this is so important, because if you're not familiar with what this is, you're not going to have fun dating. You're going to think this is all of that's out there. Granted, it's a lot. There's a lot of this out there. And there's also a lot of people who are not like this too. So let's talk about these individuals and why they are. So to understand what these people are going through when they're dating you, I truly believe, based on my experience of working with these people too, they are very much into you. The things they're looking for are very similar to what you're usually looking for in dating. Someone who's got a great personality, intelligent, interesting, has their own life together, is independent, and is also capable of being great fun in bed. And the problem with a lot of those descriptions is, whilst they're pretty on paper, they don't actually have the hallmarks of someone who's actually committed to being in a relationship. Because if you think about it, emotional availability isn't in that at all. And a lot of that is just someone who wants someone who's stimulating. Why do they want someone who's stimulating? Oh, that's because for a lot of these individuals, they're not actually connecting with their own emotions. They're in emotional distress. Often they're feeling very emotionally numb from what's going on around them, from experiences in childhood, work. A lot of these individuals work in very strenuous jobs to try and numb out the dysregulation they feel in themselves. And when they get to that threshold of feeling too emotionally overwhelmed, let me tell you, it's not because you were being too needy or because you were being too difficult or because you'd done something wrong that pissed them off. Usually it's because they get anxious, believe it or not, and they often feel like, oh God, like I don't even know if I want this. I don't even know if I'm ready to be in a relationship. I'm scared to actually be in a relationship with someone where they don't love me anymore, so I'd rather back off instead of be with them. I'm worried that they're going to cheat on me. Or outside of those emotions, they might even feel bored because they're not stimulated anymore. And so they start to think that maybe it's the sex that's the problem, and they start to blame themselves. When in fact, it's not that. It's the fact that they can't communicate and express what they're feeling. And often when people are needing stimulation, it's because inside of them, they've often got a lot of buried mental and emotional stuff going on. That may even include depression. But the frustrating thing is, you don't see that. You see someone who sounds and looks amazing, is ticking all these boxes off and telling you all the right things on the first few dates, and then it just hits you. You feel that discomfort of knowing that they've pulled away and you feel like you're responsible. No, it's not you, it's them. And for a lot of these people, they treat being in a date like taking drugs just to sort of numb themselves out and to not have to worry about any of this sort of stuff. They're not ready for relationships. They're ready for therapy, though they don't know that yet, because they're in so much emotional distress. They're so numbed out. They're so often just dysregulated, but they do want love and they do want company. Does that mean they're ready for you? No. Are they ready for therapy? Hell yeah. Will they go? Probably not. Doesn't mean they're narcissists, just means they're not going to change unless they want to. Many people don't know how to change. Many people don't have the capacity to change. And many people just need to be ready at the right time. Doesn't mean you should hang around and wait for them. That's torture. It's also important to understand too that you can't fix them. They have to want to be able to fix themselves. And the problem is when they've mastered the art of looking so shiny and so glossy that they've already moved on to find a new partner, which they often do, you think you're the victim of this, that you've, somehow been left to deal with all the emotions while they look like they're better off without you. I can assure you that what's not fixed will be repeated. And just because they found someone new, usually someone who's not as good as you, physically or mentally, it's probably, for them, that's all they can mentally handle at the moment. Their bandwidth is tiny, though they act like they want more and they can have more. They can't. They are not ready for that. And by the way, this isn't to dismiss these people. Some of them are fantastic individuals. Love chatting with them. They're just not ready for the deeper commitment yet because they're so dysregulated. Doesn't mean what they did to you was okay. It was wrong, and I'm sorry you're in this way. But without overextending this video, what I really just want to share and say is this. Focus on your recovery. Hells, talk to me. I'm someone who works with people like this all the time. I've gone through this, so I know what it's like. But the key thing I really just want to say is focus on your healing, focus on yourself, take the time to realize, most and foremost of all, it wasn't your fault. You may feel like it was your fault. They may even said, you're being too needy. No, their behavior elicited you to being needy. You're not a needy person. I don't think anyone really is unless they've experienced extreme trauma, in which case they need a lot of reassurance, which isn't neediness. That is understandable for its own set of reasons. If you've never been called needy in your life, why the hell are you being called needy now? This individual has done this to you in a way where they've caused you to react in this particular way. So anyways, I could talk about this for ages. Key things are, it's not your fault, focus on your recovery, and focus on yourself, because that's the most important thing off the back of these devastating encounters which can leave you heartbroken. So let's wrap this up. Key thing is this. If you've dated someone who's an avoidantly traded person with emotional unavailability, I'm really sorry that you've gone through this. You didn't deserve to have what happened to you, and you have every reason to feel like you may never feel like you may meet another person like that again. I hope you don't, for your sake. But you have every right to feel that, they were the one and that they were the one that got away. Very understandable. And they've been singing songs about this for a long, long time. Go listen to Fleetwood Mac's Dreams. It's literally about this. Anyways, if this has been of help, I hope it's given you at the very least a bit of reassurance and comfort and set your mind at ease. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that this has been of help. Please like and subscribe. It helps me out. Like I've said continuously, if you want support on this journey of yours, please feel free to apply to work with me by clicking on the link below. And last but not least, share your experiences of going through this. My TikTok page is literally blown up because of people sharing their stories about this, and it's understandable because we've all gone through it and it's shocking. And healing requires community.